What's up? Welcome back to the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We have none other than Miss Staci Gray with us on the show. She's the founder and CEO of Organized to Scale, and check this out, she's been building businesses for the last 21 years. So she had a really, really early start because she's super young. So she's got an amazing track record of success. She bought her first property when she was 18 years old. What were you buying when you were 18 years old? That's what I want to ask you. So with that in mind, I want to hand it over and welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your energy.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. So I mean, you have a very interesting background on I mean, just building processes altogether, right? Like it's you went into real estate and you were talking about graduating at 16 years old, right before we clicked record on here. 16 years old, you go into real estate, and you're asked by your dad, right, to work with him for 2 years before going off to college and to decide whether or not you want to go to college or study, right? Tell me about that, and how was that an impact on everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, for me, it was huge. I'm really happy with that, how things transpired.
Yeah.
But I was actually homeschooled, and I would go to school 2 days a week. So that was really beneficial for me because it taught me strategic thinking, resourcefulness, some things that time management, some things you don't necessarily learn in school, that is just structure that's provided to you. So I think my upbringing shaped a little bit of why I'm so passionate about structure and systems.
Mm-hmm.
But when I graduated high school at 16, I mean, at that age, you kind of don't know what you want to do. And so I think it was a gift to me to be able to go do something in the real world, to have some experiences, to see, do I like this? Do I not like this? Is this what I want to do? And so that was helpful for me. And what I started doing for him in the business was answering phones. And within 3 to 6 months, I hated answering phones. And I was like, can I do something different? And he said, yeah, that's fine. You can. And he handed me a copy of E-Myth and said, you have to hire and train your replacement. So I devoured that book and created all of these processes and procedures and manuals and stuff. And then realized that in addition to hiring and training my replacement, I had to lead, manage, and hold them accountable. And I was 16 years old. So I was a female, 16-year-old in a leadership position.
Right.
And so I had so much learning to do. So I devoured even more books from John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and all of the influential leaders that I could. And eventually I bought my first property at 18, like you said, didn't go to college, kept building our businesses, kept investing, lost a lot of money, made a lot of money, good lessons, challenging lessons. And it transpired to what I'm doing today, which is really helping entrepreneurs organize their businesses to scale.
It's I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, I want to give you kudos, right? Because I mean, one of the questions, and you'll get it at the end of the show, is going back to the that age range, 16, 17 years old. The maturity level is just not there. The forward thinking of where we want to be in life is, I mean, it's really, it's not there. I mean, at that point we have, you name it, right? There's all kinds of stuff that's going through our head, outside of building processes and systems and growing in the business space is like, no, if anything, like fast cash, right? And then I don't know, just attention and social media and all, nowadays. But it's incredible that you had the acuity, right, to grasp onto that concept, because from a parent standpoint, we can try to feed whatever we want to our kids, right? But it's a completely different story whether or not they take it.
Yes.
I mean, that's why a lot of kids grow up, doing stuff that they don't even enjoy just because they, and then some other people, just push back. But you took it, you actually liked it and grew in, within that space. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So fast forward, you started jumping into doing deals. You bought your first property when you were 18 years old. I mean, that's a feat in itself. What happens? I don't know. Fast forward, you're 19 years old. What are you doing at that age?
I'm running the family businesses. What's so wild about that story is from 16 to about maybe 21, 22, I was doing all of our events, all of our membership programs, running all of our CRM and websites and marketing, and the whole process I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2008, 2009 happened, and
Oof.
that was the first debt cycle I had been through. I had
Yeah.
never experienced what that was like, and that really rocked my world, and I didn't understand the global economic impact on local economy.
Yeah.
Now I understand that a lot more, and it's very timely what's happening in the marketplaces right now. Being
Yeah.
very aware of those things is impacting the decisions we make as entrepreneurs, as CEOs,
Yeah.
that impact everything down to who we employ and their livelihood. And so studying that really, really helped me, but living through it really helped me understand why it was important to study it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize that the freedom was in the systems, right? It's really cool to understand systems and processes. And I think at the beginning we have, and at this point, right? I'm a systems guy, quote unquote, but because I
Mhm.
understood that that's where the freedom is. That's where the 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 mitigation of the headaches is.
Yeah.
It's really in having processes and being able to automate stuff wherever you can, delegate efficiently, right? That's
Yeah.
really the key. Not just kind of hiring people, throwing people on a into an office and then just go forth and execute. It's really
Mhm.
not how it works. What's your process when it comes to actually building out the systems? Because I mean that's what you do nowadays at in the current venture that you're in, right? So
Yeah.
how do you go about, first off, finding like the bottlenecks and fine tuning the processes so you can build and improve upon those?
Sure. So we actually run a three-step process at Organize to Scale for building and scaling businesses. And step one is architect. And just like you would have somebody who had this idea of building a home, that
Mm-hmm.
person would go and architect it with a design team, and they would create a blueprint. We do that
Mm-hmm.
exact same thing in business. So a visionary has this idea of the type of business they want to build, their big, hairy, audacious goal, what they see it
Right.
looking like in 10 years, 20 years. And they oftentimes don't have the skill set they can see the front of the puzzle box in color and 3D. But if you take that puzzle box and dump it out, the visionary typically doesn't have the skill set or even the patience to put the systems and structures in place to make it a reality. So what
Right.
we do is work with the visionary and the architect phase to get out of their brain all of the vision and the front of the puzzle box, and then we pass that to a build team who builds the essential infrastructure. So think of it in real estate, you have the blueprint for what the build is, then it goes to
Right.
a general contractor and a construction team who actually lays the foundation and constructs the building. And then after that's in place, it gets handed to an operate team. So in real estate, you can think of it like a property manager, and tenants are placed in your house. So
Yeah.
we do that same process in business. We architect it with the visionary. The build team builds the essential infrastructure based on what the vision is. And then once there's checklists and standard operating procedures and the system is established, it gets handed to the operate team who pull the levers day to day and execute. In
Mhm.
business, what we did in the beginning is we didn't understand this three-step process. And we would hire people who were meant to just execute and try to get them to build or architect.
Mm.
Or we would hire architect type people and get them to set it up, but then try to plug them into day-to-day maintenance, and they hated it. So now our whole system is designed about, we're all uniquely wired. We have strengths and weaknesses, and how can we put more people in their sweet spot? So Jim Collins says, the right people in the right seats on the bus. How
Right.
can we do that so people are energized by what they're doing, excited about it, they're more innovative, and then everybody is moving forward in tandem together because we have the structure and the systems, but everyone also is in their sweet spot.
Yeah. No, it's really important, right? Like there's multiple benefits to operating that way too. It's your attrition level, your turnover level, I mean, significantly drops.
Yes.
People are just happier. We always talk about culture and then start slapping, phrases and all kinds of stuff on the wall and okay, cool, we got culture. I got a ping pong table. It's just
Yeah.
as culture. But at the end of the day, it's really what's being said, right,
Mhm.
about your business, your organization from your employees
Yeah.
when you're not there, when you're, how are they operating? Are they going the extra mile voluntarily, right?
Mhm.
If so, that's part of the culture. And I think you build that culture, not necessarily from the space of once you're in, but from the hiring, like from the point of hiring,
Mhm.
and really capitalizing on those natural strengths. I do a lot of behavioral type of assessments and that sort of thing in my
Yeah,
business.
us too.
Yeah, and I mean
Mhm.
it's a big tool, right? It's not the end all be all, but understanding how where the natural strengths lie, I think it's crucial, right, to plug people into those roles.
Mhm.
And it almost becomes like this somebody leaves and it's a lot easier to just I don't want to use replace. I think replace is not, maybe not the right word, right? But plug somebody else into that role is going to be able to fulfill it, and leveraging like their natural strengths as well. So
Yeah.
um
Mhm.
how when it comes to I'm going to pick your brain on pragmatic stuff here, if you allow me.
Sure.
But when it comes to the hiring process, I'm assuming that's going to be part of the rollout, right, that you
Yes.
guys do. Can
Mhm.
you walk me through that, because it's a big question when it comes to entrepreneurship and uh and how do we
Yeah,
find the right
so
people, where do we find the right people, and how do we onboard the right people, right?
yeah. So first, you need to be very clear about what your culture is. And
Mm,
what drives your culture is your values. And values aren't what you just put on the wall, they're what you actually live. And I think where a lot of culture conflict comes from is what you say isn't in alignment with what you're actually living. And
yeah.
the best cultures have the congruency. So they are actually in alignment. So for us, it all starts with values. So once you're clear around what your values are, then we design the seat that we need fulfilled. And then every seat that we have, so think of your seat on the bus. So you're hiring an investor relations person or a wholesale rep or whatever
Mhm.
you're hiring. You're designing that role and you're saying, I want somebody who has this skill set, but these traits as well that are in line with our values. And this is what they're responsible for. So we have a seat scorecard. So that person knows that they have key performance metrics that they need to hit to be successful. In our culture, we firmly believe most people want to show up, do a good job, add value, contribute, and feel fulfilled at the end of the day. And it's our responsibility as leaders to provide an environment where people can do that. An environment where people can do that is one that has clear values, clear systems in what success looks like. So a
Mm,
KPI says this is what winning looks like. Most A players love a challenge and to know what winning looks like and to know what losing looks like so that they can win more. And so if we provide that to them, we're literally encouraging them to do exactly what we want them to do, but it's also what they want to do.
mm,
So once you have your values, you have your job description that has your skill sets, character traits, and seat scorecard, then you can go start recruiting for that. And I think a lot of times what happens in the recruiting process is we interview and we tell people what our values are. And so they get really good at just reciting back to us what we told them.
yeah.
A better way that we have found is to actually ask open-ended, thought-provoking questions that they can then answer, and we can gain insights into are they aligned with our values or are they not without them already knowing exactly what they are.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's really it's I mean, you bring up a really valid point. Somebody can go into a website, right, and kind of see what the whole company is all about right before they walk into the appointment. So if you start reciting, and then our values or
Yeah.
ethics and morals and everything else, our mission, vision, and all that stuff, it's easy to memorize.
Mhm.
And they will tell you what you want to hear. The Interestingly, right, we have this psychological trigger that usually lasts about 3 months. So I don't know if you've seen this, but every time I've gone into a business to do some type of consulting, or advisory, and I do that in different verticals as well. But we'll see great performance for around 3 months, and then it'll start to decline. What happens is that usually people go into a role, and when they're not really a fit, they'll put in the effort, right? They'll put their best foot forward, and then sustain it for a period of time. It's usually around 3 months, whenever that starts to kind
Mhm.
of dwindle, and it's
Yes.
like this person was great, last month. What happened? They just get tired of adapting to that, to that, mm,
Mhm.
role that brings them a situation that it's not in their natural capacity to
Right.
just deal with,
Right.
and it's taxing. That's why people
Yes.
get, some people get home exhausted from work, and some people get
Mhm.
super, they get home at 6 7 8 p.m. they're still wired.
Yep.
It's just, is that in alignment with the role that you're doing at work? Is it in alignment with the your natural capabilities
Yep.
and natural strengths and tendencies, right? So
Yep.
it's really, really interesting. um
I do.
you mentioned the seat scorecard.
Mhm.
I'm a geek when it comes to scorecards and KPIs and metrics and all that stuff. What are the elements of that scorecard? What do you include? What do you look at whenever you're putting together a seat scorecard? What are you looking for?
So we actually design scorecards around our process maps. So earlier, you and I were talking about traction and how you had Gina Wickman on, and there's
Yeah.
so much about process mapping and structure. And every business has 7 to 10 core processes.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we take those core processes, and if you process map correctly, each of those has what we call swim lanes. And
Right.
those swim lanes are role-based swim lanes. And so when we create a scorecard, we'll look at a process map and say, what are the leading and trailing indicators of success for this workflow? And then there is scorecard metrics that are pulled out of there from each of the swim lanes. Then that becomes the KPI that goes to the seat scorecard because it's
Mm,
already attached to the swim lane. So that all happens in an architect phase when you're designing the businesses, because a visionary usually ends up trapped in the nitty gritty of the business because
right.
they need to have some sense of control around what is happening. But most visionaries really don't want to be in the nitty gritty. They'd rather be more elevated. The way to give them the freedom to elevate is to provide them the visibility that they need to make decisions, because the CEO's job is to strategically think, make decisions, and then be so intimately involved with the psychology of humans so they can drive and inspire the results that everybody wants.
Right.
That's what I feel the job of a CEO is. And so when you architect that in step one of the process, you can then put all of the systems in place and be confident that the metrics that the visionary is getting to make decisions is in line with what he needs. And then on a seat scorecard, what the person is actually doing is generating the results that is going to drive towards that 10-year, 20-year target.
Mm, I like it. Yeah, it's I mean, it's a really good breakdown of I mean, at that point, is there really any ambiguity as to what are the
No,
responsibilities? What are
no.
like what are you accountable for? And I think that happens quite a bit, right? Like it's accountability. We may assign roles and responsibilities and that sort of thing, but what about accountability?
Yes.
When you have something to track that's as solid and as put together, as a scorecard where they own their results, it's kind of
Well,
hard to shy away from
mhm.
low performance, right? In your opinion, what's the biggest mistake business owners make?
Oh, but hands down, overlooking the power of culture. Hands down.
Mm,
If you have a phenomenal culture, you will bring out all the innovation, resourcefulness, problem solving that you need. If you like, you could take an NFL coach who's an amazing NFL coach and give him mediocre players, and
yeah.
he will be a mediocre coach that has the best players
Oh yeah.
purely because
Yeah.
he has created a culture of excellence. And that changes everything.
One thing that I learned early on was this is it was somebody I looked up to, not necessarily a mentor, but I was paying attention to what he was doing all the time.
Mhm.
But one of the things was or that he said one day, he didn't even say it to me, I just picked up on it.
Yeah.
But it was, you get what you tolerate.
Mhm.
Right. And I mean, same thing in business. You get what you tolerate. If you tolerate, half-ass results, you're gonna get half-ass results from everybody. You have complacency, you have, stuff like like that
Yes.
that starts to settle in. And I mean, it takes us back to that conversation of culture. It absorbs, anything around it. It's like a sponge, right?
Yep. Yeah.
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 How when you're scaling, I mean, people usually come to you when they launching? Are they getting ready to ramp up? Are they when is somebody coming to you when it comes to, or the ideal person that reaches out? What stage of the business are they in?
Yeah, so the ideal person is a visionary who knows who's so confident in their marketing and sales ability, but are as nervous that if they put their foot on the gas pedal, that they'll implode under the pressure of growth because their infrastructure and their operational systems are not streamlined and together. So
Yeah.
people usually come to us in one of two times. One is they've already built a business before and they've exited, and they know hands down they don't want to go through that journey again without having the back office support and the structure done correctly.
Add me to that list.
Yeah, exactly. So then they come and say, I already know I want you. I already did this school of hard knocks. Let's go. Or it's the person who went on their own, maybe got to 500,000, 1 million, and then they realize, okay, I can't get any further. If I keep going the way I'm going, I'm going to lose my relationships. I'm going to lose my health. I'm going to resent everybody and everything. My kids aren't going to know me. I have to solve this now.
Yeah.
That person comes and they already have proof of concept. So that's a great person, because they know what they have, the market wants. They are passionate about it, or at one point was passionate about it, and they're confident they can get it back, and they're eager to get the structure in place so they can go live in their sweet spot and do the things that energize them. And they're at the place where they're really willing to let go because they know they can't keep operating the way they've been operating.
I think the key word there, a lot of times we as as entrepreneurs, we create this baby, right? And like nobody can touch their baby, it's their baby.
Yes.
And it's really what business becomes. Because we see, for example, I built a non-emergency medical transportation business. That was my first business. The logistics behind that, I mean, were crazy. I started the first vehicle. I went out and bought it at an auction for $1,500, and then built the whole thing up from there. So it's like you're watching it grow as you go through, and I mean, you really become part of it, right? Your identity becomes attached to that. If this thing fails, I fail.
Yes.
If this thing grows, I'm growing. If this thing is successful, I'm successful. It really becomes part of that identity, I think. And in turn, I feel like some of the biggest things, at least, I'll speak for myself on this, is for me, was to release that that degree of control when I thankfully, and I say this it was a blessing in disguise, because I can't drive two vehicles at the same time, right? So
not
at
possible.
least I haven't figured that part out, where I can drive two wheelchair vans at the same time. It'd be great for overhead, but I can't. So I had to bring on drivers. Like, I was forced to bring people into the business just because the nature of the business. If it would have been, I don't know, a digital maybe business, I would have just, burned out a lot sooner, I think. But I was forced to bring people in, and in turn build a process, right? It kind of hit me. I figured out when the problem got there, per se, because I wasn't that forward thinking like you were when you were drawing out, business models and plans, and the E-Myth. I think I read it when I was around maybe 27, 28 years old. So I was like, I read the thing, I was like, man,
if I had this 10
where
years
were you
ago?
10 years ago? And I think it just connects back to that entrepreneur mindset, and that entrepreneur, willingness to just go through the gutter, and then, have all those chips on our shoulders, right? Like battle wounds and whatnot. But it's not sustainable.
No.
Like, the reality of the thing is that it's not sustainable. We have to learn how to relinquish some of that control, mitigate it, and still have the ability to steer the entire thing. Make sure that we don't lose the one, efficiency, two, accountability, right? And then three, the overall mission of the thing. Otherwise, like, what are we in business for? We can't do it by spending 16, 18 hours a day, which is not uncommon for bootstrap entrepreneurs. And it goes to show, right, that at the end of the day, the important thing is really the freedom is in the systems.
Yes.
It's not the sexiest thing to talk about.
No, it's not. I do think that a lot of visionaries who let go too soon, or let go to the wrong people, or let go without invisibility. I know so many people who have been burned that way, and so they even hold on tighter. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that I need as a CEO is I need data so I can make decisions. And the only way to get real factual data is to have systems within your organization. Otherwise, you won't have accurate data to make accurate decisions to steer the ship.
Yeah, you
And
gotta
so
track stuff.
yeah, they go hand in hand. And so it's not blind letting go. You have a dashboard, you have visibility, you have the controls of your vehicle
Right.
still, but you're just not changing the oil. You're not filling up air in the tires. You're not getting your car washed. Like somebody
Yeah.
else is doing that, but you have the data to show if it was done or if it wasn't, and if it was in line with what your vision is.
Yeah. There's so much, right, that goes into it, and it's I was actually talking about this maybe a day or two ago. I had this Jeep, this 1961 CJ5. It was like my crown jewel, right?
Yeah.
Like I was so proud of this thing, and I would always do things and tweak it, and I bought that thing when I was in high school, and I had it for years, and I remember, like, this is the analogy. I would like, okay, I want to make this thing run faster, right? In our language now, it's scale.
Yes.
Let's do more.
Yes.
And I remember putting this big ass engine into the Jeep, and like now it's got a great engine. It's super strong. It's got the big tires, and I can go fast, right? Well, the transmission is not gonna keep up with it. Like
Mhm.
now you have to come in and then tweak that portion of it, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh man, okay, that thing broke. And it's the same thing with business. Like if you
Mhm.
optimize one portion of it, you're going to have to, do the same thing for the other aspects of it. Otherwise
Yes.
you get bottlenecked, right?
Yes.
You got to have I mean, I advocate for it, because you got to have the systematic approach. I mean, hustle is a season. It's not a business strategy.
Right.
We can have the instinct and the tool, in the tool of hustle, right? But really, we have to shift that mindset from that hustler mentality to that entrepreneur processing.
Mhm.
I mean, that's where it's at. If you
Yes.
want to do anything that has longevity to it, right?
The only are you familiar with Rich Dad Poor Dad or Robert Kiyosaki and the
Oh
cash
yeah,
flow quadrant?
yeah,
Yeah, the only way to move from the ENS side to the BNI side is systems. It's the
yeah,
only way. If you don't have systems, you can't layer any more growth on top of it because you will implode.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we get bottlenecks all the time. I mean, the current businesses that are run, they all have systems. I'm in the middle of building the entire system process for or operating system for another, another project that we're working on, right? But it's you're always going to identify bottlenecks.
Yes.
Um, One of the things that happens a lot in my space is, for example, the consistency, right? In wholesaling, the consistency of deals coming in. Um, what happens, what breaks that consistency, is that people focus on lead generation. This is just an example.
Yeah.
They'll focus on lead generation, and then hit that for months, right? Boom, 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 boom. Then they get deals. What happens now? They're focusing on the deal, and they stop that lead generation, process,
Yeah.
and because they're focusing on the dispo. What happens? They sell that deal, they make money, and they got to start all over again. There's
Yes.
no
Pipeline.
continuity, right, to a lead
Mhm.
gen process. That's where the systems come in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's important to really come in and fine tune. I mean, I guess fine tune is it's I mean, it's over, shooting the I don't think we ever fine tune the processes. We can dial them in, we can tweak them, but as new software comes up, I
Yeah.
mean, now we got to roll something else. Like, they're the living documents, really. It's what they are. They're always changing.
Well, building a business is an iterative process. It's
Yeah.
not a set it up and forget it. And what we do is every 90 days, we do a 90-day review and we look at all of our workflows, our 7 to
Mm,
10 workflows, and say, okay, what's working, what's not working?
yeah.
If we put more pressure on this, where is it going to break down? And how can we
Yeah.
anticipate that so we can plug in the infrastructure? To your point exactly, a lot of people do that. They fill the front end of their funnel, then they focus on fulfillment, and then the
Right.
pipeline dries up, and then they abandon fulfillment, and then they go back to filling their pipeline. But in the meantime, they have a massive cash flow problem because they haven't prepared themselves to make sure that there was consistent stream of business coming, and
Yeah.
then structures in place for operations. So when you're looking at your business 2, 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, then as a CEO, you can start anticipating what will happen and start forecasting and planning for it so that you don't get into those breakdown cycles in your scaling process.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. There's so many things that go on, right, in the business side of things when it comes to entrepreneurship. Now, let's bring it over to the personal side. How do you maintain the balance right? I mean, I believe in counterbalance, but I want to hear your take on this. How do you create that life work or work life balance, that you often, or people often speak about? Is that even something that you contemplate, or is that out of the picture in terms of
I
realism?
actually have like a love-hate relationship with the word balance,
Yeah,
because it it's really hard to measure on a daily basis or a weekly basis. So the word I like better is harmony.
yeah.
So you could have a very harmonized life, and you could feel like maybe one day you did work 10 hours because you were passionate about it. And that's something else I think that is important to understand about entrepreneurship and visionaries is we get trapped in our businesses for two reasons. One is because we grew without systems and we imploded under the pressure. That's one
Right.
way. But the other way is that we are wildly passionate about what we do and we love it so much. And we want to do all of the things, even the things we're good at, we have to delegate at some point when we scale.
Yeah.
Um, and that passion in us, we have to learn how to channel it and then set healthy boundaries around it so that we don't sacrifice our family, our friendship, our health in the process of pursuing just one part of our passion. Because our well-being is the vehicle that actually generates all the results we have in business. Our mindset, our psychology, our energy, our physical well-being, our relationships, our community, our connection, those things are so integral to building and scaling a business. It's not just about generating revenue. Most of the problems I've ever solved in life is because of who I know, not because of what I know.
Yeah.
So when we sacrifice the part of community and connection, we actually sacrifice a lot of the ability to scale our companies as well. And so for me, it's more about harmony. How can I look at the life wheel, if you will, of my life and design my life in a very harmonized way? And my sweet spot within OTS is I'm the brand ambassador. So I come on and I talk with people and I enjoy that side of it. I am the visionary. So I came up with this idea of what we're building. I have my integrator who handles all of our systems, a lot of which are out of my mind because we are a systems oriented business, but I have people in place who are doing that. So my sweet spot is very energizing for me. I get to read a lot. I get to talk to really cool people. I get to travel. My significant other gets to travel with me. I get to incorporate it into more of a blended, harmonized way of being versus separating it. Like I don't separate it as much because for me, I love what I do and it's very connected.
Yeah.
And we were just in Utah last week for his birthday, and I brought Ray Dalio's book, Changing World Order, and I was reading it. And people maybe would be like, well, you were on vacation. Why were you reading a book? Why were you doing that? For me, that is very fulfilling, and it actually is relaxing and energizing me, and it's intellectually stimulating, and I enjoy learning. So I think when we compartmentalize so much, we make it okay, 5 o'clock, this stops and this starts, but I don't view it that way because I feel like it's not sustainable, one, and it's setting me up for a lot of failure for my system. I know so many people who have a ton of structure like that, and that works great for them. And I do have structure, but it's not as black and white, which I think has allowed it to be more integrated for the way I operate.
That's an incredible answer. I've never gotten that before when it comes to the work-life balance, and harmony makes perfect sense. I see it, or I've seen it for the longest time. Now I'm questioning it, but it's a matter of counterbalance, right? For me, it's easy to get into the weeds of whatever I am working at the time, and I get really passionate about projects and anything that I'm if it's something that triggers me, it's gonna wake me up in the morning with that fire in my belly, and I'll go on until I die at night because I just turn off, right? But I'm fired up the entire time, and it became evident to me that I couldn't hold that for long periods of time. I got burned out when I was around 26, during running that transportation business. It got to a point where I had no no tenacity. I mean, I got it to the thing was running, right? But I didn't care about really pursuing or scaling or doing anything bigger with it. I dragged going into the office.
Can I
It's like,
ask you a question?
yes, please.
So okay, so this is I have a theory on this. I want to see if it's
Yeah.
accurate. When you were burnt out, what hats were you wearing?
Um, I was wearing, I mean, I was pursuing contracts at the time,
Okay.
and I was a director of operations at that. So I was the owner, but I was also running. I had an operations manager, but I was running operations in reality. So I was
Okay.
micromanaging a lot of stuff that he was supposed to be doing, and he was doing a
Okay.
great job. It was all me. Like it was my totally a me problem, but I wasn't delegating.
Okay.
Like I should have been. So I was wearing a lot of different hats when I thought I was just being the director of operations.
Yeah.
And I mean, it got to me.
Yeah.
That was part of it. I was getting caught in like super tiny little things that were shooting or really aiming for perfection, and kind of like the
Mhm.
same level of I was expecting everybody to perform the same level, at the same,
Oh,
at what I
yeah.
expect of myself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I can be like super crazy about how,
Mhm.
what's the word? I'm trying to find it. Um,
Like excellence, like
yeah,
perfectionist
yeah, exactly. So I
excellence.
mean,
Yeah.
I just I demand a lot of myself. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And if it's not really good, and I'm not happy with it, it's not going out. You know what I mean? But I was trying to push that on everybody
Yeah.
else, and the reality is that it's my baby, right? It's my
Yeah.
ball of wax. Like nobody's gonna have the same vested interest, that I'm gonna have. First off, right? Second, it's to a lot of people, like it becomes this place where they just go and then they grow as employees and whatnot. And there's opportunities, and but the same level of excellence is not going to be there, right? So I was trying to kind of like force that down their throats, and it's just
Yeah.
I got to a point where I got burned out. I wasn't motivated.
Yeah.
um
I think that one of the reasons that happens, well, is two reasons, and I think you've just validated it. Is one is we're sitting in seats that we shouldn't be sitting in, and that can happen to a founder and it can happen to our team.
yeah,
So this is the job, I believe, of CEO, is to understand human psychology.
yeah,
And when you understand that, you know that for yourself, if you do something that is draining to you for too long, you will burn out. The same is true for your team. So being very mindful of that plays an impact. The other thing is demanding perfectionism. And I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I very much relate to this.
yeah,
But when you do that, the goal is unattainable. So it's discouraging. And when that happens, it kills confidence. So when confidence declines, people take less action. And when people take less action, there's no momentum and there's no results. And so it feels like things are stagnant or you're dragging a ball and chain. And
yeah.
all of those things create burnout. And we do it to ourselves as CEOs often. But it's that process of having that awareness, and then also like that community of other people outside of you who can look in and give you insights into what you're doing, because even if you know how to do it, you still have blind spots when you're in it. And so having that external perspective can be powerful in getting you untrapped from it.
I mean, I couldn't agree more, honestly. There was definitely a lot of hat wearing that it wasn't supposed to be happening. So what I did, to kind of counter that, is I actually disconnected myself from business for a period of time. I mean, I would come in and then check on it and whatnot, but and realistically, everything was up and running, right?
Mhm.
I just wasn't allowing my team to roll out their talents. I wasn't allowing for example, my director of operations to be the director of operations. I had trained him to come to me with any issues and any questions, just because I was still choking the control out of the damn thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I stepped away just because it became a matter of I lost myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's not the guy I am. I'm not the
Yeah.
like I'm a happy guy. I'm a
Yeah.
smiling guy.
Yeah.
It's like that's what I've done all my life.
Yeah.
And right now I'm not. So it hit
Yeah.
me, right. I had to
Mhm.
disconnect from it, and I got really comfortable with the idea that I can build something to about 80% and roll it out.
Yeah.
And that like that just made, I mean, it just switched something in my psyche, right, in my thought process. Like I don't have to have something perfected to 100% and then wait for it
Mhm.
to roll out. because that last 20% is what really kind of, drops the momentum. It's what,
Yes.
you have to, put something out there and test it. Right. So I got to that point where I wanted to have everything that, like, okay, this contract has to be absolutely, dialed in. It's already approved by the attorneys, but let me see if there's something else that I'm missing. And I would spend another week just breaking down the damn thing. Same thing for processes and dispatching procedures and I don't know, you name it. Right. So I got to a point where it's like, all right, cool. This feels like it's 70, 80% ready. I'm going to roll it out. And then I would wait for feedback on how it performed. And when it came back, I would, tweak some other stuff. But I surprisingly, that was one of the best things that I started doing. And it helped me with my, that notion of perfectionism that I was pursuing all the time. Right. What happened? I moved a lot faster and I got a lot happier.
Yeah. It's magical how that happens, right?
Yeah. Another thing that I got from that is the idea of counterbalance, just having the ability to disconnect. Right, we're deep in the weeds. And I this morning I was doing a coaching call and I was talking to my students and talking about joy, just having smiles on your face. Like, it's one of the most, one of the easiest KPIs that we can follow, right? Like, how many smiles are you dropping on a daily basis? Did you have joy for 90% of the day? Like, you're winning, bro.
Yeah.
Well,
you also have to know what brings you joy. If
Yeah.
you don't know what brings you joy, you can't create a system around that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of times people, we view sometimes checking out as the thing for recharging, but it doesn't have to be the thing to recharge. Reading a book could be recharging to you.
Counterbalance, yeah.
Yeah, having a walking conversation could be recharging to you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not so black and white.
Yeah. One of the things that I used to always, I would try to disconnect, and it's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna chill, I'm gonna just sit by the pool in my backyard this afternoon. And I would sit by the pool in my backyard that afternoon, but whatever I had in my mind was stronger than that, that joy of sitting in the pool in my backyard. I just wasn't enjoying it, as much as the idea in my head that I had to fix. So that's where counterbalance came in, right? Like, it's to me, it's something that pulls me away and it's stronger than the problem at hand. If there's something that's just breaking me and I've been at it for a couple of days, I need to disconnect from that. I got to find something on the polar opposite that's gonna, either, draw my attention more to it. I'll go, I'll go out of town. I'll do a weekend trip. I'll go out to the woods camping or, you name it, go to the beach, right? If I'm at the beach, I forget everything. Like, it's one of those things. Like, that works. You know what I mean? But it's a form of counterbalance, and it's refreshing, right? We have to do that as entrepreneurs. We spend enough time in the fire, per se, to not give ourselves the ability to counterbalance somehow. Some of the daily stuff is working out, going to the gym, right? Like, that pulls me out of my operator mode, per se. So,
and how many more problems do you solve when you're doing that?
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. It's a
all
fresh mind. It really is. So, wow, this has been a truly, truly wonderful conversation. I feel like we speak the same language when it comes to systems, processes, and mindset. So, Staci, before I sign off, this is my favorite question, really, to ask. But if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give that kid?
So my 17-year-old self, I'm going to describe her so that when my answer comes, it's for that person. I was raised in a very high performance household. Like, we were taught delayed gratification, discipline, extremely structured. I pursued excellence and was willing to make a lot of sacrifices to do that. And so that person, and granted, I graduated high school at 16. So at 17, I'm already working.
Yeah.
I think the message to myself would be to set a goal, define your steps to get there, and trust the process. Because I would judge it, critique it, feel like I was off track, put a lot of pressure on myself, and steal the joy of the journey. And so I love pursuing things. I love challenges. I love chasing, and I love working hard. That comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
And what was challenging for me was to trust that what I was doing, whether or not it was exactly the outcome I wanted, I was doing good work and I was keeping the promises to myself that would build the confidence that I would need to navigate whatever came my way. And that part has really, as I've gotten older, I've adopted, and that has really taken the pressure off of me. So I don't have to feel like when a mistake happens, I'm a failure. I feel like now when those things happen, it is a signal to me that, hey, there's a weak point in one of your systems that let's go back and fill. And it would be okay. And that process trusting has, I wish my 17-year-old self would know.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Where can somebody get a hold of you if they want to continue the conversation, pick your brain, maybe find out more about Organize to Scale? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, I can share with your audience some free resources that I've created. I have a webinar that I did, a 3-step process that explains more in detail, architect and build and operate. If there's entrepreneurs out there eager to set their systems up that way, and they can send an email to scale@organizetoscale.com.
Scale@organize-to-scale.com. Scale.com. Awesome. I'll make sure that we have that in the show notes. Perfect. Social media, are you active on social media? Can somebody reach out?
Yes, I am.
There?
They can go to Staci Gray or Organize to Scale, and I'm on there as well.
Beautiful. Staci Gray on social media. I see your LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Yes. So with that being said, I want to thank you. Thank you for spending the time, dropping the golden nuggets, and really sharing your journey. I mean, it's refreshing, right, to see that entrepreneurship can start at a very early age, and getting some validation in terms of the power of systems, the power of being organized with what you're doing. A lot of people know how to do massive amount of money, but they don't necessarily know how to automate, delegate, and get their time back. So I mean, I think that's a big duality that happens in entrepreneurship. And at the end of the day, like we're shooting for something that allows us to live a better life, right? So that's the beauty in systems. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me and teaching people how to use entrepreneurship to get free.
Awesome. Fam, there you guys have it. Stay focused. You got this.